So let's start reading images instead of words as printed on a page. And this particular image that I want to start off with, which I label A1, image A1, is the main picture on a vase that is known as the Münster Hydria. And unfortunately, both the left-hand side of the painting and the right-hand side of the painting are chipped off. And if we were to see this in color, it's almost good training for our minds not to see this in the color reproduction. The background would be red, and then the foreground would either be black, that's the primary color, or white. That's the secondary color. I'm saying secondary only because it's not used as much, but when you use it for big emphasis. Mm-hmm. So in this case, what you see is a white egg-shaped mass rising out of the ground. And that's really the focus of the painting. And especially if you imagine the round surface of a vase, the fact that you have this white egg-shaped mass in the middle is even more striking. And let's kill the suspense. Okay. This is the tomb of Patroklos. It will become the tomb of Achilles. And it's also a turning post for a 4-horse chariot race. And you see the 4-horse chariot race at the point where it's taking a left turn, that dangerous left turn in its counterclockwise trajectory around the turning post, which is the tomb of Patroklos, which will be the tomb of Achilles as well, because they will share that tomb. And as a tomb, it's guarded by a ferocious lion, whom you see right in the middle. And hovering over the tomb is a miniature size human figure, a warrior figure. And I'm saying hovering because he is levitating in the air. And notice he's fully armed. And again, let me kill the suspense. This is the Psūkhē of Patroklos. This is the disembodied conveyor of the identity of Patroklos. And the reason he can be Tom Thumb-sized is because he's dead. And this is the Psūkhē. Let's not call it the ghost. Let's call it the Psūkhē. And I've already given you a programmatic definition which works for Homeric poetry for Psūkhē, disembodied conveyor of identity after death. And the 5 letters that you see off to the right of that miniature figure, which if I transliterated these 5 letters into Roman letters, would be first letter PH, but it's just one letter, second letter S, third letter U, fourth letter KH, but that's just one letter in the Greek, and the 5th letter E. Put them all together, it spells Psūkhē. So this is the first picture of Psūkhē in Western civilization. That's pretty good. Whether you date this picture at 510, which is the usual dating that is given it, or I like to press that a little bit, maybe as early as 520, still very early. And what's missing in this picture? Well, partially missing are 2 figures, one on our left and one on our right. Let's handle the one on our left first. You see a figure who is carrying a shield, and you can still see the hilt of his sword, and you can see his shin. And so he's a fully armed warrior, if you think of this picture as representing the heroic age, or an acrobatic athlete, if you think of, let's say, 5th century or 6th century Athens, which is the era that we're dealing with here. And again, let me kill the suspense. This is Achilles. And he has just jumped off his speeding chariot, and he's racing alongside this speeding chariot. So I have one more thing to talk about, and that is the eroded figure on the right, who is definitely female. If you look at the horse that is farthest away from us and farthest to the left, you can see that there's a hand right where the nostril of the horse is. And that hand is white. And in the color coding of black figure painting, which is what art historians call this kind of technique, white skin indicates females, black skin indicates males. And so what you see here is a female figure standing in the way of the onrushing chariot and making a gesture, which is something like this.
A hand out.
A hand out. Other than that, maybe one detail, since we've talked so much about the dangerous left-hand turn, look how the horses here, the team of 4 horses, have the horse that's closest to our vision, have the head furthest down, and then as you go back away from us, and you go further to the left, so to speak, from the standpoint of the chariot driver who's missing from this picture, it's clear that the left-hand horses have their heads pulled further back and the right-hand horses have their heads thrust further ahead, and that's because, presumably, the charioteer is whipping the right-hand horses, giving them stimulus, impulse, while restraining, reining in the left-hand horses.
And how about the lion in front of the sēma?
Well, we're going to see that he's kind of a moving signifier as we look at other pictures like this, and we see other examples of a sēma. The figure that's guarding the sēma can be other ferocious beasts, like, let's say, a stinging snake. And it would be conventional to have, let's say, a statue of a fierce lion in the front of a tomb of a hero.
And so the key to understanding these kind of pictures is to look at many of them, right?
Is to look at many of them, to compare them, and not to make any kind of prejudicial judgment about, oh, this is more basic, this is more derivative. You have to look at all of them together. And it may well be that every one of them is an independent testimonial that reflects the storytelling traditions, whether the storytelling is visual or verbal.
Can you just clarify what you mean by storytelling tradition? So are these pictures of what's happening in the Iliad?
Well, but if you say the Iliad, that implies that there's this one text and it's unchanging. But let's say these are, this picture and other pictures we will see are definitely referring to, or at least expressing an awareness of, a storytelling tradition that resembles our Iliad and maybe resembles it very closely. And as we'll see later, these pictures may even inspire us to say, well, in 510 or 520 BCE, the Iliad as performed in Athens may have been slightly different from the Iliad that we have in our textual tradition.
So we need to not just be thinking about the Iliad, but be thinking about the tradition as a whole, right? So even the vase painting tradition can have its own tradition.
Yes.
Epic can have its own tradition that is not totally included in the Iliad.
And for that matter, lyric can have its own tradition, as we saw in that beautiful fragment from Pindar, where Achilles is having a go at Memnon, and where it's a very lyric perspective.
But they can still talk to one another.
But they can talk to each other, and after all, this is a world of song culture, a world of words and images that keep retelling stories that are what we call myths, and I use that in a very serious way. I mean story patterns that reflect the world of a society.